It's a little louder than it needs to be.
Nobody wants to sit in their house all the time.
Good evening. Welcome to the Town of Scottsville's community meetings. This is the Town Council work session for Monday, July the 12th, 2021. My name is Matt Lawless. I'm the Scottsville Town Administrator. And this is the Scottsville Town Council work session for today. The time here now is 9 minutes until 7 o'clock. We're no longer meeting exclusively on Zoom. This is our first Town Council work session after our COVID-19 emergency. So we're maintaining the Zoom access for the public, but our meeting is being held in person with our full Town Council here at Victory Hall. The meeting is open to the public and everyone's welcome to attend. We also have the online and telephone availability. If you're viewing this meeting in the future on our YouTube channel, thank you very much for tuning in. Let's see, this meeting is being recorded and I'm at 7 minutes until our posted meeting time. So I'll mute this line while we continue to gather everyone together for our quorum. And if you want to skip your video ahead on YouTube by 7 minutes, you'll see the meeting come to order at that time. Thank you so much.
Laura and Dan.
I'll send this, I'll send this invite link around. I haven't heard from anyone else.
Check the input, make sure we're on the right thing there.
Well, I just want to say it's mighty
If
nice
it's not
to
possible
see
to do without
everybody.
unmuting.
See some smiles. I haven't seen smiles for a long time.
I know, it's nice, isn't it?
All right, exactly. This is our first in-person meeting with you.
In a long time, yeah.
A year and 2
Since
months, yeah.
March of.
March,
yeah.
a year, 3 months,
I'd say,
about 4.
It's gonna be one of the first
Commission
things.
has had-
Well, I guess we met in person in April, didn't we? No, were we already?
It's a blur.
I know.
Certainly, yeah.
The
April.
13th was the day our emergency order went in effect.
We had one or two more after that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
Yeah, I want to say we had 1 or 2 more meetings after that in person before we went fully. Hey, Matt. Offline or online, as it were. Oh, yes, please. Come on up to the table. I'm not quite sure where we're going to be, but we'll make room for everybody.
What, at your convenience, sir.
The best thing I had. Every time I see Zach, I'm walking.
That's good.
Every time I see Zach, I'm buying tomatoes down at the farm.
Yeah.
That's pretty nice too.
Want to go ahead and start?
We got people coming up the stairs here. Somebody coming up the stairs here. Ron, if you want to give it 30 seconds. That sounds like Laura.
Oh, deal.
All right. For a work session.
Wow, for a work session.
Okay.
All right, we're still missing Laura, but she might be.
She's on her way. She's
All right.
coming.
Well, we're gonna go ahead and start.
Matter of fact,
There she is.
Hi. Hey, it's the whole table.
So this work session is called to order, and we'll just get right into it. And Chief Colwinkle.
So good evening, everybody. It's good to see y'all again. Brought a couple of people with me today. First and foremost, I'm going to introduce you to our newest part-time employee. This is Dustin Herndon. Dustin's been with Fire Rescue for 14 years. He comes to us from the Buckingham County Sheriff's Office. He resigned back 6 months ago, something like that.
Sorry.
He's got, he works for
First contract.
and that's his full-time job. So at this stage, he's currently still in the FTO training program that we have. He started on the 2nd of July, and he's quickly moving through that program. So sooner or later, you'll see him driving by himself rather than with somebody in the car. Please welcome him, Dustin.
Welcome, sir.
Congratulations.
Hi.
So the next issue I want to discuss with you folks is Tony Taylor. He has been working vigorously and diligently with the procurement process for this new vehicle. To some degree, sometimes painstakingly, but he has worked through it pretty efficiently. So I'm going to let him describe to you exactly what he has done up until this point, and what we have to do here in the very near future.
So once Matt and I sat down with the chief and talked about the grant and being awarded the grant, I had never done a grant before, but it wasn't too difficult once I found out what the ground rules were. I basically had to go to each individual vendor and outfit the car from the ground up with all the equipment. And everything had to be on a state contract bid or a state ID number. So it's been vetted, and that's the lowest price that a municipal entity is going to get for those components. So once I did that, I put all the invoices together, sent it off to to the lady at USDA. They awarded, they said everything was right based on all the contract numbers, and they awarded the contracts to those companies, and I began ordering. So hopefully within the next 6 to 8 weeks, we'll have a car and it'll be outfitted. We did fairly well. We got it from Sheehy. Sheehy's going to do the upfit on it. It's actually cheaper overall because we actually got more equipment in the car for about the same price. And it's basically going to be a one-stop shop. It's their car, they're outfitting it. So therefore, if there's any problem with it, they're on the hook for it rather than going from one vendor to the next. Because if you do that, obviously the dealer's going to say that they didn't do it, but it was the people that did the upfit, and then vice versa. So then you get kind of caught. But they have a very big workshop, very big bay. It's for the whole Commonwealth, and they do it right in Richmond. So they're doing contract work for everybody. So hopefully, I mean, the car is physically there. It's a matter of getting the shop out, and all the parts are beginning to come on in.
So in addition to the siren and the radio that everybody's familiar with, what all goes into a police car that's, you know, bolted to it these days?
Well, we had, like the current cars that we have, they have vinyl seats. That's the way it comes from the factory. So the front seats are cloth where the officers sit, and then the back seat is vinyl, but it's a soft vinyl. It has, you know, the cushion on the bottom, the cushion in the back. It has gaps. So if you were to put somebody back there, they could dump contraband in between the seats. Obviously, they could defecate or vomit or blood, and then you have the hazmat situation that gets down to that stitching. What has come online is the one part molded seat. It's just one big hard molded seat. Very easy to wash out, decontaminate, can't hide anything. There's also a floor pan, so you can literally just disinfect the car and hose it out. It's a whole lot more sanitary. It's a whole lot safer. Nobody had those parts in stock except for Sheehy. I actually was able to procure that as well as a radar unit. So this car is going to be outfitted from the ground up. Everything brand new. Nothing's being reused except for the county radio. It's a county radio, but everything is new.
Part of the reason, I'm sorry, part of the reason for that is because the equipment that comes from the old cars wouldn't fit in the new car. The radar might, but we had the money in the grant to do it, and we need another radar unit. So it was important to equip all that with it. So it'd be a whole lot easier and a lot less expensive to do the decontamination, like you referred to with the stitching. We did it at the sheriff's office. We had cloth seats in the back, and it got to be a rather expensive project, and you had to have a separate contractor doing it. So it takes the car out of service. It's just a nightmare.
For future, when we have another car that we're procuring, what is the cost difference between the car versus the outfitting, all the details?
So right now, we were awarded $60,500. Roughly, we've spent all but $800, and I kept that as a buffer just in case something comes up that's an unforeseen. Sheehy is very professional. They know exactly what goes into a car. They know exactly what goes into, obviously, Albemarle County's cars. We're trying to parallel that as much as we can. Again, just keeping the equipment the same. It's the same reason why we went to the same weapons. We want everything to be interchangeable. Everybody's familiar with it. Everything has to be outfitted the same. Muscle memory. If I get out of the car and he gets in the car, it's all in the same spot. It's muscle memory. But everything's, I mean, it's a really nice outfit. Like I said, we spent all but $800, but what we're getting for that is we're getting that molded seat. We're getting a brand new radar unit. What we have is second, third generation. They work, they're functional, but they're a piece of electronic equipment. After years and years, the technology just is not there. And being used all the time, it's nowhere near as good as it was after it's 5 or 10 years old when we turn them on and off every day. But right now, the car runs about $35,000, and that includes the base package. Everything's pre-wired, so that's going to include some things that if we didn't get a police package, that would have to be installed later.
Okay.
But that's already pre-wired. A lot of the Stuff is pre-laid out, so all they do is plug and play. It's roughly $13,400 to outfit the car with the lights, the radar, and to have all the electronics installed. There are some peripherals such as the body camera, the dash camera. That was an additional $5,000, but that's going to be installed by Sheehy when they do the upfit, and that's all part of that $13,000 budget. Everything is new. The computer, the upgrade is the newest computer that's on the market. Albemarle was starting to get it, and we were able to give them their contract. And we saved about $2,000 in one unit. So we were able to get that.
And all of these prices are through a state bid contract. When we initially looked at the Virginia Sheriff's contract, we were looking at the Dodge Durango, but there was no Durango on anybody's lot. When we called Sheehy, and it was at Tony's recommendation, they actually have 4 vehicles sitting on the lot. So that worked out to our benefit, because we'd be waiting 8 months to get another car from the date we started. So from this date, we're even working on 2 months.
A little over a month, that means 6 weeks.
So we'd be waiting another 6 to 7 months to get a car had they not had that. So, but that state bid process works for all the agencies throughout Virginia. And that's what helps with the pricing. So.
But it's going to be an excellent car. It's going to be an excellent value for what we're paying for it. Everything, like I said, is brand new. All the equipment comes with warranties and extended warranties and the upgrades that are there. I mean, right now we have a computer that just doesn't work. It doesn't have the technology to be upgraded. It's an older computer. It just won't work with the platform that they're using. So what we're doing is we're going from behind and we're jumping ahead. We're not playing catch up. So that computer is going to be good for a number of years. And it's not a hand-me-down from the county.
Or something we buy off of eBay and upgrade. So. Any other questions?
Any questions?
No, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate all your hard work.
Wasn't my hard work, he did. And I'm grateful, and I'm grateful for it. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
As far as statistics go, I was able to create a spreadsheet for you. We're down for calls for service for this month. I think a total of 72 altogether. Those are the calls that we did respond to. Some of those calls are outside of the town assisting the Albemarle County Police Department. I'm going to say, I think maybe 20 of those calls, I think it is, if I recall correctly. We have, this month, we only stopped 8 cars for traffic violations and issued 4 summonses. So down on summons totals. Can't think of anything else at this point. I know that Stuart talked to me or mentioned last month that he'd like to put that webpage for the state police up for the public to access. I don't know exactly where to put it at this point. I don't have a webpage. I suppose I could put it on my Facebook page, but as we all know, and I've discussed many times, I'm technologically challenged. So we'll eventually work into that. I just don't have that down yet.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe we could put it on the town's website somewhere, give you a page, you know, to where you could, if there's anything you want to communicate, we could kind of, you know, wave the flag for you and sort of trumpet what you're doing and sort of show you off a little bit. So that was what I had in mind.
I'm not big about being shown off, but that's okay. We were able to, because of Tom Payne not working the last several months, we were able to save a little bit of money in the part-time budget, which allowed us to buy some additional equipment. We talked about purchasing a server for the video evidence, and with the new watch guard system coming in, we were able to get equipment that we will eventually be able to set that server up so that the video on that new car and the body camera will automatically download to the server when they pull into the parking lot of the police department. That way I don't have to manually take out a USB like I'm having to do now and upload it into the computer we have. It'll be more secure. It'll be a less laborious process for me or them.
How long does that take if it's doing that automatically? Like if you,
Depending on how much video data there is, would determine that.
okay. I'm just saying if you pull in to the station, you gotta like sit still.
Yeah.
Like 15 minutes or whatever.
Well, it might just take that long. It might take longer. I know the county police department does it regularly. That's how they set up all their cars.
Got it.
All their
Yeah,
cars, when they pull into the parking lot, that video uploads. Now they're sitting there for an hour waiting on a lineup or doing administrative stuff within the building. We don't do that very often.
Right.
But as time permits, it will certainly make it much easier. And with the stops that we have and the data and video that we transfer, it won't be as much.
Okay.
So.
Right now, with what we have, it's kind of antiquated. So even though we may tag a traffic stop or traffic summons or a warning or investigation, there's no real way for us to purge the system. So it just keeps piling up and piling up, piling up in the server, and it doesn't get purged. Right now, we're obligated to keep traffic stops with summonses issued for 2 years. We have to keep that data, but if you just do a stop with a warning in 60 days, that's a lot of data that's getting gobbled up that's not being able to be purged.
Yeah.
This new system, it'll automatically, the program set up, it'll automatically do that purge.
Got it.
And you
That's great.
can't get into it and alter it in any way, shape, or form. It's a direct transfer. And you don't have to worry about it. You pull in and it starts to download, you have to leave, it will pick back up right where it left off.
Cool.
That's nice.
But it keeps that hard drive in the car empty
Yeah.
in case you get into something, you're not gonna lose anything.
Yep.
And then purging that data right now, the way the system's set up, we've got the free software. But with the purchase of the new one, we're getting a full version of the software, which allows us to do that. Right now, I have to go in independently and delete each one that's not mandated to be held.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
It was 3 weeks of us just sitting there watching video, 3 weeks.
that was 3 weeks. Yeah. We have to give credit where credit is due. So, but we're getting it done. There's a lot of labor intensive. It's labor intensive because of circumstances he's in. He's been able to do that. It's helped me out enormously. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it, and he's done good work at it. So really more kudos to him than it is to me. They do a real good job. So,
That's good.
any other questions?
Okay, again, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Y'all have a good evening.
Thanks.
Excuse me, everybody.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the Chamber of Commerce report. I went to the Chamber board meeting. I'm still on the board, as is Laura. And we had Matt explain to the members that were present the business launch program and the details of that. Laura and I have drafted a letter, which I have sent to Linda LaFontaine, basically saying that the chamber and the town's events committee could really work well together, and that someone from the chamber should serve on the events committee. And that also that person might be willing to help with marketing aspects of both the town and the chamber, because right now Thomas and Matt have all they can handle, and marketing is an extra chore on their burdensome schedule as it is. So I haven't heard back from Linda. I just sent her that letter this morning because we just finished getting it like we wanted it this weekend. So that's the Chamber House has an event coming up on August 20th. That is, what is that event exactly?
It lines up with the art opening that SCAN is working on now. They have a call for artists for storefront art displays, and the chamber is eager to help with that art opening be a little bit of a community event too. So look for that I'll be excited to see some decoration in the storefronts and make a business owners mingle out of it as well.
You said it's the 20th?
Yes, Friday, August 20th.
Oh, August 20th.
7 in the evening.
And Matt, what is the deadline for the small business launch grant?
Oh, the grant deadline is this Friday, the 16th.
It's this Friday. Okay.
Pulling
I
that-
thought got it.
Okay. If you have any questions for the chamber, just direct them to Linda. Mr. Bullock, so nice to see you in person.
Yeah, it's good to be here in person. I
you
was
like-
here in person last Thursday too. That was also nice.
Yeah. Would you like to give a report on the ARB?
I'd love to.
All right.
So what did we do? We approved 2 COAs, one for the town for the new signs, both, well, the DMV is a fait accompli, but also the new town offices sign. So that's ready to go. We also approved a vent to be installed on the on Bruce's Drugstore. On the corner there, a bakery's going in there. So it's a pretty low, what's the word I'm looking for here? It's gonna be flush with the wall, so we sort of color and placement so it matches the windows and such. But bakery's going in, so everybody's very enthusiastic about that.
It's interesting. Sometimes ARB is the first to hear about these things because they
Yeah.
want to make sure they have it okay with you
Yeah.
before anything else
So
happens.
that's cool.
What does the town sign look like?
We did wind up going with the
We'll see
the Bateau seal here, the original one. It will be a white background with blue lettering that just says town offices. The white background, we didn't want to go blue background because the DMV sign is blue as well, and we figured it'd be difficult to match those exactly. So,
That's a good description. Thank you.
but otherwise,
It
you know,
looks
roughly
nice.
the same size as that DMV sign, which would be, I think, 18 by
I'm just happy that it
24
has
or something like 32.
the
Yeah.
seal that we're used to on it.
Mhm.
Yeah. And we also noticed that river seal that we were looking at too. Once we saw the DMV sign in person, the DMV has like a swirly road.
It does, it's very similar.
Yeah, so it's good. We didn't really catch that until we were here together looking at it. So that's cool. And that DMV sign will also not always be on Valley Street necessarily. That's something we also just sort of kicked around, that those signs might not always exist on Valley Street.
The DMV portion of the sign has to be on the building, but not necessarily
Right.
projecting from it. But we want to
So-
increase visibility when we open.
Yeah, so, cool. And then let's see, what else we do? The Truist Bank is going in where BB&T is. I guess the Truist merger, SunTrust and BB&T.
Oh.
So we didn't have a COA to look at, but they sent us sort of like a mock of just the corporate sign that goes in there, just sit on top of the pedestal pole that's there now. The question that we have for Truist though is the lighting, because it's like internally lit LED.
Hmm.
So we were concerned about lighting on the corner there, so it's not garish. Because they had, things in there about Kelvin and whatever else. But I also know the planning commission is thinking about, light ordinances and such. And so we didn't go too far down that path, but we're going to provide them with some feedback that we want the lighting to be sort of like mellow, or as mellow as it can be, for the neighbors across the street and our entrance corridor. Because I don't think we have any internally lit signs in town right now, but the specs that were with it was a pretty brilliant LED color. So anyway, but we don't know much about lighting. We don't have a lot of the technical
No.
work in our ordinances or our guidelines to sort of work with that.
Dollar General does have a lit sign.
Mhm.
So
The
it's inside, it's their
It
fake lights on the
is.
outside, they're not actually.
Oh, really?
It's their fake.
But it's internally
Yeah.
illuminated.
I
Okay.
guess
The language that Zach found in the ordinance was that the sign lighting has to have an incandescent effect. And so we were going to approach them about how incandescent is an LED light.
probably not. Probably not.
actually a very good standard.
Okay.
Means whatever you want.
Right, exactly. This is not incandescent enough. So that might play to our favor. But anyway, so that's the feedback that we're sending along.
Yeah.
Let's see what goes there. But that's our main issue there. But I also want to bring dovetails on planning commission. We've had some progress on buildings that were rated in poor condition, which was good. So we've been sort of ticking those off as we go, but we still have a number that have not met with us, where we've had some email exchanges, but still not met in person, and a number that just haven't met in person at all. And so at our next meeting, we're going to decide which of those properties we're going to pursue further legal action with. And I know your recommendation was to pick a case to move forward with. We don't have to do them all. Yeah, and so part of our conversation at our next meeting will be about how to do that. I know we're interested in property owners who own more than one property, beginning there. And I think we'll have to decide either the condition of the building itself, the number of properties, or even just the historic nature of the properties, because some of them are clustered together. So I'll have more feedback for you about that next time.
Quick question, do any of those properties happen to be on the Urbana County side of the town limits?
No.
Yes.
Yes.
Which one?
We have two by same owner down on your end of East Main Street.
It's not over the line.
It's not?
No, it's real close though. It's real close.
It's real
Because
close.
you're the first house over the line.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm very familiar with the county line.
Right. Yes, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have.
Yeah, but everything's on the Albemarle side. Is that a
Bummer. Well, I found out from a resident who has a job for Hoover Preservation Group in Urbana County that they give out grants to lower income houses to do repairs to the houses, to keep the houses intact from historical nature.
I think we'd still.
And that would be perfect for Urbana County, but they don't get the same kind of grants to Albemarle County.
I see.
So this is the next.
I think we'd be interested at reaching out and starting a conversation with them so that we can have that relationship when the need arises. We've already reached out to AHIP and Habitat here in the Albemarle side of things to have similar conversations about, what resources are available.
That's good to know.
Thank you, Ed.
The other enforcement issue that has come up is 385 Harrison. Let's see, a little over a year ago, they built a fence, sort of with incomplete information, because Matt just told them that they were able to do it, but it turns out they weren't able to do it according to our ordinance. And so that fence work was done, but since then we've asked them to meet with us because we need a COA on the books for it, and also just to talk to them about the plan in general, if there's a way, because the ARB is interested in sort of remediating it in some way, or doing some work, because the fence is sort of three different materials. There's wrought iron, and then picket, and then privacy. And so we wanted to meet with the property owner to discuss a way to sort of like balance that and to discuss like future work. In the last month, they did a roof replacement, also without a COA, that we learned about. So we also need to meet with them for that. That's a little more problematic because they just did it, and the work that was done is, I don't think would have necessarily, I don't know what the ARB would have done to this, because we look at consistency of materials as well as the nature of the building. So the roof that was replaced was the porch roofs there with a standing seam. We have approved standing seams in this town, and we have some lovely standing seam roofs that have gone up in the last couple of years. But we often look for consistency of material, and we're sort of talking the seam itself on that property may not have been the way to go. We also don't know about why the roof was done or what the issue was. And so it just puts us it puts everybody in an awkward position here around this thing. And they have not met with us either in violation of request. So we're also going to decide how to move forward with this particular property. That's it. Do you have any questions for me at this time? I'd be happy to field them or comments, but.
I have a question, and that is, does the ARB ever approve, like, let's say somebody can't do their whole roof at once, but they can do a portion and they're gonna do the next.
Oh yeah,
one.
we definitely approve parts of a project.
So if you knew about the situation and they were doing one portion now and another portion later, as long as you knew about it.
Mhm. That's right.
We discussed that a bit at the meeting from a staff level about, looking at the application, and if this had come to us before the work had been done, I think one of the first questions staff would have asked is there an intention to do the rest of the work, and would you like to include that in this permit, and have the conversation all at once?
Right.
But because we're doing this as a retroactive process.
And again, right now, no communication's gone out to the property owner.
Oh, community
Has.
Yeah.
Okay.
They've not arrived in person at a meeting.
What other work are they thinking that needs to be done?
Don't know.
Oh, they're just in the process.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at least it's not shingles.
Great, it's the right direction.
Okay, any other questions for Matt, for Zach? Planning Commission.
We had a fairly light agenda last week after our marathon meeting 2 weeks before. So we are easing into new organization. I'm now the chair of the Planning Commission. Sherry Lambert is vice chair. And from there, we are, I guess, reorganizing the order of affairs, what to move on to next for zoning updates. We had brief discussion on what we might find to be the most important things to move forward with. Glad that you mentioned that's the dark sky stuff because that was on the top of my list. And so no real updates to share at this moment, but we will definitely be working on some new action items, and we'll have those across to you guys as they come forward. So, and always happy for open conversation if there are things on the town council that you find are important to move forward with next.
Thank you. Any questions for Lindsay?
No, I do want to reiterate the lighting ordinance though, and like the dark sky stuff. So I think as new things are built or whatever,
Yeah.
and it just seems to, and this has come up a few times going back the last couple of years at the ARB level anyway, just sort of the lack of clarity and guidance for us when we're talking about these sorts of things. So
Yeah.
I think,
Especially with tighter fuels coming in
Mhm.
at some point, and I totally agree.
Good.
Yeah, I have kind of a random question. Where are we with regard to purchasing the easement for the wetlands around the plant? I mean, I think my understanding is we answered the question that the town is not liable for any ecological disaster that's discovered there because we don't own the property. And if that's the case, I think it seems to me that put to rest the objection to moving forward with that. And is that kind of a correct statement? And if so, what's the next step on moving forward?
Are we talking about that now?
Please, I think you were expecting that here a little bit later, but go ahead.
Well, essentially,
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
I'm waiting for your all's approval or not, disapproval of the proposed contract and easement so that that can be authorized to sign. There's a considerable need for some haste, which I'm not going to go into here. But if you call me, I'll be happy to talk to you about that. Basically, you're an easement holder. All easement holders can be liable. For example, if you're running a natural gas line, naturally, you're going to be subject to the federal hazardous waste ordinance and the state ordinance too. Be found liable in this particular case. If it becomes the easement holder of the recreational land, will be sufficiently removed from the sort of enforcement action on the hazardous waste that are ultimately found to not really have to worry about it. And even if you were, for example, to purchase that land, which you're not, what's happened with hazardous waste has evolved since it was enacted. When was that? Back in the 80s, early 80s, 90s. In any event, before the powers that be who were charged with enforcing the federal act went for the low-hanging fruit, some people would at least have money, some money in their pockets, and often that would be government entities or whoever they could find money to enforce their obligations under the statute and regulations. But now with a chance for the court systems to evolve and enforce circuit, you've got pretty protected by not being really subject to any sort of liability exposures as well as what you can find down in the ground as a result of what was put there in the factory many years ago. I don't really know how much of a concern that is. Water goes downhill, and as I understand hydraulics, whatever is put into the soil there it's liquids long ago migrated elsewhere, further downstream, in this case, the river. I think it's the ultimate source of where all that stuff ultimately went. Any sort of soil contamination, you have to worry about it. I don't think we've ever had any worries about some sort of weird subject such as ketone and something like that that was produced by the tar factory. I think you pretty much run the mill standard. Fabric, yeah, I'd say not exposed to that. So I don't think you have to worry about exposure to environmental.
So would you, I'm sorry to interrupt, but so with the previous testing that's been done on the site and it having been cleared for any environmental hazard before, do you think there is a slight possibility that those results would change?
Well, of course, don't assume that there's been any adequate testing. I think the only thing that's been done is a phase 1 environmental study, which basically is more or less saying, hey, has there been a gas station on this property? You know, if you find an old gas station anywhere, you're going to have a hazardous waste problem. Although I bought a number of gas stations for clients around here. I don't even want to tell you how many hundreds of thousands of gallons of gasoline were lying below this property because they weren't the entity that put it there, and because it had been discovered and so forth. It's too long to get into. It didn't have any worries. But to do a proper study, what you need to do is to do a phase 2, which involves drilling a number of wells on your easement, which is prohibitively expensive in this particular case, and would probably cost you maybe half of what you're going to end up paying for this land, this floodplain land, and what you would ultimately discover there again. I don't know. I don't think there's been any underground gas tanks or anything like that there. As I said, my understanding is this is that water does flow downhill, and that there's obviously a river right next to this, very close to this, and so any liquid is going to flow downstream. And I'm not aware of any hazardous waste, in particular the Loaded Tar Plant Act. And in particular, I'll say that I'm not aware of anything that I've ever discovered here from the town of finding cancer hotspots, which you would tend to pop up if there really was something that they were using in that tar factory that started in late 1940s.
Yeah.
So what you find is you have over all these years, which is 70 years of history, you do have something that's like Love Canal, you're going to find cancer hotspots. And that's just a Jim Bowling top medical science stuff. Thank you for what you were
44, this is the original weather.
I don't remember any gas tanks, excuse me, or fuel tanks when I worked there. And that was in the 70s. There were a lot of lubricants to keep the machines going.
Right.
And of course, a lot of chemicals that we probably wouldn't even use now as far as cleaning, etc. But as far as tanks, I don't remember any being there.
Yeah, and it's probably full, if you got lubricants, it's probably full of that stuff that may just escape that you find in electric transformers, which are, you sit there and fondle it for any extensive period of time, you're going to get cancer. But you're not, again, you work there, you're not finding a serious group of people that suddenly develop cancer. I mean, you would know, this is a pretty small town.
Yeah.
And you're talking about a bunch of people that handling something readily like the stuff I'm talking about, like PCBs. Or asbestos or something that's clearly causes cancer. You're going to have some evidence of that in a small town like this, are you not?
Well, I know in Front Royal back in the 80s, and you probably remember this, Avtech Fibers did a similar type of industry there. And that's where the keep-hole into the Shenandoah River became a problem. Of course, that was shut down, cleaned up, EPA, site, etc. I've never heard anything of that nature.
They're in good shape now, but it put the brakes on everything in Front Royal for 20 years.
I remember. Yeah.
This wasn't key pump they're gonna produce, they were making tires, right?
Here, they were weaving nylon fabric for the interior of the tire.
Right, that's what I mean.
So it was basically looms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
weaving looms. There weren't any byproducts except for the scraps.
And then, it seems to me too, the exercise of modicum of common sense. What are you gonna do? I mean, this is part of your town. It's been here now for 70 years. You're gonna wall it off and.
Yeah, I mean, it seems, I mean, the environmental question is a moot point for me. I mean, we're not liable for it, and if there is
Yeah.
environmental waste there, there's nothing to do. Or it gets cleaned up. I mean, it really, I don't see how this has, and I don't see how this relates to going forward with the easement.
So I had some conversations with some of the environmental partners about use, since that also came up in discussion. And Department of Conservation Resources, Department of Wildlife Resources, State River Association, Piedmont Environmental Council are all very supportive of this opportunity and grants. Like, we're excited about the possibility of what it can do in terms of their efforts and their goals.
Yeah, preserves the riverbank. I mean,
Yep.
We also address the usage, right? We don't have to have a plan,
mm-mm.
because for them, it is the plan. Like,
Yeah.
Right. The best thing to do there is to not do anything.
Yeah, I agree.
Which is what we're doing.
Yeah, preserve our wetlands.
Are we doing well?
I mean, you may have an outlet set or something, or, you might have a.
Then we'll contaminate.
Well, yeah, but you're gonna have a porta potty, right? But then you're gonna have some maybe exercise equipment, picnic tables, or whatever you put there, basically, recreational use.
All right, Mr. Bowling, since you have the floor, do you have anything else you want to report on tonight?
Just that I got involved with Thomas, one of the hats I wear, attorney for the library board. They helped them so they could do Zoom meetings, and Thomas, the director, wanted to know if they could continue to Zoom meetings, and lo and behold, they can. And so I wanted to make sure, I sent out a message to the town council.
Yeah.
Somewhat late, but before this meeting. And I pointed out that there's a brand new statute effective July 1 to come to the rescue for the town if they want to continue Zoom meetings as a city and county. To do that, you have to have a meeting, declare an emergency, and then essentially adopt what you adopted before, going forward instead of looking from the rear. And that's why I think for town council, we want to do.
You remember we did that at the end of March, declaring our emergency.
Mhm.
The state emergency has ended, but if anything changes here where we think things are bad again, you just take the one emergency meeting. Declare it,
We discussed this
retreat again.
afternoon, Matt and I, and as Matt sort of indicated, Albemarle County may be treading on thin ice, whether they have a real emergency or not. Right now, I don't feel like we have a real emergency here, and we need to not treat it as such right
Just
now.
to counter that, I talked to Matt about that. Last week in Missouri, they had 20,000 new COVID cases, and their ICU units are over 92% capacity. The majority of those ICU cases are individuals in their 20s, 30s, and 40s. You may realize that viruses are extremely competent social Darwinistic creatures. They thrive on replication and finding hosts that have inadequate immunity, because then that allows them to develop a critical mass, and they get along in this universal mutate. And so to do that, they need a number of people that are unvaccinated, which they here, there, and everywhere, including pockets in Virginia. So you may well find yourself, at least until they're straightened out. Certainly, I think you have legal support for an emergency if you want to do that now. Because it's not something anybody's making up. There it is, staring you in the face. And, so that's not the county you mayor, but people disagree on that. But the viruses work a certain way, and it's out there, and the numbers don't lie. We hope we all dodge this bullet. It seems to be out there still. Okay.
So any other questions for Mr. Bowling?
Yeah, well, before we get too far away from the easement or the access grant, what's the next step on moving forward with that? Because it doesn't sound like there's any objection at this point that should keep us from moving forward.
The next step is to have Matt authorize and sign the easement and the real estate contract with the realization that there's a number of people who still have to approve the language that's before you, I guess, on your next regular meeting, and that includes not only Dr. Hook, but also the Outdoors Foundation, but which means that this thing could come back to you again. And the reason why you don't want to wait, in my opinion, is because there is some urgency to take advantage of this if you're interested in doing it now.
The required public hearing has been held, so it'll stay as old business on your agenda next week to act on as you see fit.
Okay, so we don't need to put do we make a motion to accept it at that point, or kind of, how does that work procedurally?
Yeah, you make a motion to enter into the contract and
Okay.
And the contract has to attach to it the proposed easement. You authorize Matt or the mayor, or however you want to do it, to sign this document.
The other side of that was that the contract requires that the land be zoned public.
Yes.
And that portion of both public hearings was tabled as well by Planning Commission as well as Town Council. So in addition to approving the contract, both of those bodies will have to come back around and make the vote on the zoning change. But as Matt said, that public hearing requirement has already been fulfilled. So it's just a matter of recording the vote to change the land from industrial to public.
Okay. And is that something we can put on the agenda for next week, or?
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry, just Planning Commission, Stuart. Town Council doesn't vote on that.
Okay.
In this case, all you're doing is authorizing the mayor or Matt to sign a contract, which in that case would be an offer.
So these are SUPs that go through.
He still has to accept, so, which you can or cannot do for a whole bunch of different reasons.
Do we have to wait until Planning Commission votes to rezone it?
Planning Commission did make a recommendation at their last meeting, so it's sitting with Town Council.
So we have to,
You have lost it.
okay, and we can do both of those things next week.
Yes.
Okay, great.
I have a quick question for you, and that is, government services is taking a look at the code that Unicode is working on transferring to digital format for the town. But as we were looking at that, we noticed there are a whole bunch of codes that the town doesn't have that we think would be helpful to consider and to give to Unicode. Do you have a recommendation on how we might insert or process new codes?
Of course, but I mean, basically, there are two code services. One is Unicode and the other is Scottsville. Assume you negotiate with both of them.
What is it? It has code in the name as well. It's the government, it's the G,
But
yeah.
they're all just cookie cutter operations. Really. They adopt codes that with laws and counties throughout the state, so more or less they're all the same, but they keep up with current legislative changes.
They do.
So what kind of changes are you wanting to read through the legislation?
Our understanding, if we look at the existing code that we have in comparison to the legislation, they don't have comparison. So we might.
Well, no, they should give you updated state of the 2021 code complication service, which basically same thing with the town of Blacksburg, yes, town of Nancock, I think that's a recent one, or a couple of towns in the valley got recent updates.
So for example, new law related to cell phones, which Town Council doesn't have because cell phones didn't exist the last time we did a major code update. They are going to recommend cell phone related law for us, or
I thought so.
Okay.
I mean, basically, you want what's in there up to date, this code, cookie code. It's not something, they can't, they do this all over the country, so.
Right.
We're not gonna have this error of omission because we're not
I don't
asking them
know,
about.
I haven't been, I don't know.
Okay, we'll have to check that in.
But you want to make sure you're getting what everybody else is
Sure.
Right.
Jim, just quickly, have you heard about anything on the local, state, federal level about the abilities of localities, and it may be linked to some type of funding, may take the zoning power away from municipalities like Scottsville or Charlottesville or even Albemarle County? I caught a little blip of it last week and I haven't been able to find anything on it.
I haven't heard about that. That would be a revolution in the evolution of zoning.
Yeah, well,
Traditionally, it's been a state organization for zoning, a local act rather than zoning being dictated by state. Except for such things as where locality, you can have your local zoning, but we're going to put nuclear waste dump in now with the Scottsville factory, for example. That kind of, so I haven't heard of any movement where the state is taking over the zoning function of the state. All various and sundry localities. I don't know how many entities there are legally, probably 400, 400 different zoning.
okay, well, I'm sure you'll let us know if you hear.
Well, I mean, you could.
I'll let you know if I hear.
Was having some conversations with residents in town. We're going through the process of registering their address and that appropriate real estate property tax. And learned in that process that they are directed to put all of their registration under Albemarle County and not in the town of Scottsville. And that gave me pause because how does that then impact our tax revenues? The town should be getting a certain percentage based on an address of our residents. These are addresses that are clearly in our town.
Well, I mean, it's, again, this is a software problem. I'm not sure exactly. I think we're talking about new addresses. I don't know what you're talking about.
So somebody moves on to Page Street.
Right.
They call and say that they're new in their house and registered with the county for the tax.
Right.
They originally registered their car to be in the town of Scottsville and their address to be in the town of Scottsville. And they were redirected by county staff to change it from the town of Scottsville to the county of Albemarle.
Well, that's probably correct. But why can't somebody, I thought we just had a meeting recently.
That's
To
why
me,
I'm
it's just
asking.
bad. What's the problem with having a little asterisk about this stuff? How difficult is that?
I think they don't want to have it.
Tell them to get the
Yeah.
I mean, don't you think, I mean, that's not my problem.
The vehicle license registration is of particular concern there because that is a different, layer of tax collection that we do have that they should be remitting, that the county should be collecting and remitting to us based on our current agreement. So, right, yeah, if they're asking people to register differently, then they're removing that collection and remediation from our revenue.
It used to be, the alternative for all this is for the town to start charging town license.
We do have one.
Yeah, but you used to have a little sticker that you gave.
Right, we used to administer it ourselves.
Now you gave it up, you got rid of the sticker, you gave it up. And
Correct,
that's when the
correct.
system started to go down all that.
Yeah,
I think that's literally what it means. I started here, you still had stickers, right? Yeah. And also great for enforcement too. If you were parked in the town very often, didn't have the county on sticker, you ended up having a ticket, and then you could say, "Oh, no, I live in the county." Or if you didn't, you were in trouble. But that's, I'm digressing. It gives your answer. It seems to me that, yeah, it should be, because this is important too. We had the same problem with, for years, a couple of years, we're trying to get the clerk's office to remit the town its fee funds that the town dollars rather than county.
right.
And I'm still not sure if that ever happened. But I think
We're getting less money.
that's probably too, just looking at that chart.
Oh, no, an order of magnitude. I mean, they flipped that around. So I believe we're getting something closer to our actual amount there instead of. That's opaque. I mean, it unfortunately doesn't have a lot of ability for us to trace with the information in Jeff's police report to the amount remitted to us by the county and the fines payment each month.
I don't understand that.
Yeah, I know.
Then it's easy, and you just get an answer that says, oh, can't do that, that's not acceptable answer.
What I'm learning a little bit from the e-summons fund that we're maintaining since we passed the last ordinance that applied a $5 surcharge on every ticket to maintain the e-ticket equipment that they use.
Yeah.
That remittance has been coming in from the county, and it's interesting because that does show me all of the payments that make up the lump sum they give us, and they're not all $5 increments. So I think part of the issue at play with all of these fine remittances is the way that people pay the court system. When you're issued a fine by the courts, you don't necessarily have the ability or the desire to pay it all in one lump sum. And so the courts oftentimes are remitting to us portions of payments based on what they're receiving as people pay.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
1/10 of it if they're on a payment.
Right. Yeah.
But it should, but I mind, it should be, it's really no acceptable answer for the county to say, it's too much trouble for us to.
I agree with that. It should be trackable, but it puts it in this funny area between a sort of cash and accrual basis of how those payments are being, collected and transferred.
I understand.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Why can't we have some identification of where this deal is?
Right.
Essentially, you'll have to revert what is done to every system tax enforcement, property tax for vehicles. It's going to have to, it's the third thing. Maybe the easiest, quickest way to do it.
And we also, I don't know if that applies to our Fluvanna County residents as well.
Right.
Because I think Fluvanna County is in a
Oh,
similar
yeah,
situation.
I mean, just as a first step, I think there should at least a talk back to say, hey, we're gonna do some educating too. They really don't know.
Yeah. So I mean, actually, the sticker, I always like the sticker.
So when Matt and I met with Supervisor Price the other day, this is one of the things we discussed. So she's aware of the situation now too. Yeah, so now let's have the treasury.
This is a helpful time of year to look at this treasurer's report in a little bit more detail because it's the year end for the fiscal year that ended June 30th. So a refresher on how these reports look. On your front page are cash balances, and we compare the end of the past month to where it was a year before. The town has two reserve accounts, the Caldwell Fund and Special Reserve, and the LGIP is our longer term savings account, which earns a better interest rate than what the general fund does. As you know from your own checking and savings accounts, that BB&T checking account rate is basically zero. And the bond funds at LGIP are not much better because treasury rates are still real low. We earned $20 in interest on $400,000 in the bank last month.
Yeah, we get less than $1 a day.
Thinking about how to help this money perform better is an important conversation. But looking at just year over year, even with the economic upheaval of the pandemic and all of the new projects that the town took on, the economic damage to our tax base was not as bad as we thought it would be. We were able to control our spending, freezing raises, some furloughs, halting equipment purchases. Council made budget reductions that we stuck to, and then we were able to claw some of that back at the end of the year with your supplemental appropriation. But looking at those two bottom lines on the front page, you're about $55,000 stronger in the bank than you were this time last year. That's coming out of this pandemic recession in a very strong fiscal position. You see a little bit more detail on this on page 4 of this report, which has kind of the basic buckets of revenue and expenditure. So the key lines to look at are about halfway down where it has total income for the year, $775,000. That includes the CARES Act money received from the federal government in 2020, but not the American Rescue Plan money. We did not get that money before June 30th. It came in the first week of July. Total expense, a little down below there, is at $718,000. So that difference from 775 to 718 is how you get the $56,000 surplus for the year. Looking at some of those line item categories in them, you can see how we affected our targets. So on the expense side, you've got 11 or 12 category lines, and the percentage on the right side, none of those categories are up over 100%. That's good. You adopt this budget with the line item spending as caps, and our spending needs to stay under that. So seeing them at 90%, 95%, that's good. They're in streets, 99.1%. That's cutting it awfully close and deciding, you know, maybe we don't pay this bill right at the end of the year, but we keep it under 100%. On the income side, you can see comparing as well. And there it's good to go over 100%. That means more revenue than what we expected. So bank franchise tax, meals tax, cigarette tax, all of those were up over 100%. I'm a little worried about cigarette tax because in our budget, we advertised a cigarette tax increase. And I think that maybe some of our vendors ordered the tax stamps at the lower rate before the end of the year. And that's a little bit of money. So we might see this number goosed at the end of this year and then down for the first year of increase.
That'll be one we highlight for potential to fail to meet expectations on the original budget that we passed.
Are you involved with the regional cigarette tax?
They asked us about it, and we shared that at work session, and our initial response was lukewarm. Our cigarette tax is not very hard for us to administer, and I'm skeptical that what the regional authority would charge us, it would be more trouble than it's worth. Yeah, but we'll see how it goes. Charlottesville, Albemarle, and some other counties are looking at administering this together. It might help us, but they would also probably charge us something.
Didn't Albemarle just go up on that tax about a month ago?
Yes, counties used to not have the authority to do cigarette taxes, and they got that from the state. So it might actually be good for Scottsville because currently if you go to the gas station up 20, your cigarettes will be cheaper than they are here. Now they should be closer to the same price because the taxes are the same.
So you don't pay both, you pay one or the other, depending on the locality where you make the price.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay, good.
So like the rest of sales tax, it's the same rate statewide.
Okay.
So that's kind of the summary of the budget. And can I continue on to the cash management portion of this? So it gives us pause because while the town does have a lot of long-term obligations, we are sitting on a pretty large cash balance. I think this is the largest number in these accounts that I've seen in my time working here. And we want to make sure that our reserves especially are working for us. Inflation is still out there, especially the cost of construction, and our interest rates on our savings accounts are not keeping up with it. So it gives us some pause and question about what do we do here? Are there other investments that you want to try to make to earn a little bit better rate? A CD is a good example. You lock the money away for a year or two. It's not liquid, but if there's some money that you know you're not going to touch for a period of time, you can earn a little bit better rate on it. It also brings forward the question of capital spending. If you're worried about construction prices continuing to go up, I think what they say is the best time to do infrastructure building was in the past, and the next best time is now.
At the same limit of the town, essentially not. But I think it's just part of what they've done in all down. Luxury to be able to do that.
Private investment advisors.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they get very good advice, and so they're doing the maximum thing, or at least close to it that we do with restrictions that are all in the investment fund. And I think you're going to find that although you're not going to be above 1%, be at 4%.
That's right.
We're going to be at 2%.
Yeah.
Less.
We can't take the tax revenue and buy stocks or Bitcoin with it to try and get.
But even now, here's a thought that I think I have some easy ideas a lot of short-term investments.
Yeah.
Perfectly safe, pay a lot more,
One of my
1%.
kind of gut check questions for council is, are you at all interested in something like a CD that trades liquidity for a little bit higher return? If there were $100,000 that you knew you weren't going to use in the next couple of years, would you be comfortable locking that away for a longer term investment?
Yeah, I mean, we could get year CDs too. It's not like we have to go for real long periods of time. I think we need to get a 6-month CD if we wanted.
I know we have options of 1 to 3 year CDs available.
Yeah.
And any of them would provide a better return on the money that we have than what we're currently getting. Which, yeah, as Matt said, I mean, it is zero. When I started, we were getting 0.00125% interest on the BB&T account. And so we moved $150,000 or whatever it was that we seeded the town of Scottsville account with out of that and into LGIP as a new account alongside the Caldwell Fund account.
Yep.
And we, in doing so, managed to move that decimal place over, I think, 2 points and had a 0.125% interest rate on those. And we're getting a couple $1,000s of return on investment in the first year or so that we did that. And that rate over the last, 18 months has steadily declined to the point where they don't list our interest on the which is now, since we received another $250,000 from ARP, we're sitting at $400,000 in BB&T with 0% interest, and earning, in the LGIP accounts, we basically moved that decimal place back. And so we're down to this point now where we're getting less than $1 a day on another $400,000 that's sitting in LGIP.
Yeah.
There are a number of funds that you can invest in government bond funds.
Yes. Yeah.
They're perfectly safe that will give you a rate of return maybe greater than what
the Virginia Municipal League has a sort of array of between 1 to 3 year CDs and other. I believe they are actually bond-backed CDs is what they use for.
These are like mutual.
Okay. But yes, it would be more productive.
We've shown a remarkable amount of restraint in terms of not using our savings accounts, especially in the town LGIP. I mean, we really don't touch those ever. And so I'd be completely comfortable putting half or better.
Yeah, me too.
Or something like that for sure. We were going to get a little more money out of it.
Yep.
Seeing as you have the adopted budget, like barring a 6-figure emergency, you're not going to touch that money this year because you have adopted the budget and it doesn't meet the service. Right?
Right.
Don't be too disappointed though, because there's 1% is for this we went through all this trouble.
Right. Well, but it does add up when you have, I mean, that's really, we saw, I was going to say, we, in that first year when we made the change and put the extra, $150,000, $200,000, whatever it was in LGIP, we did see, I think it was $2,000 or $3,000, extra come in on the return on investment that year. Yeah, and that, I mean, I know a lot of this stuff, it dovetails in with the conversation that we started a few months back before the budget process with government services about, right. But having that plan of sort of what money do we actually need and how much can we set aside?
That's something we can explore and leave it to the Matt and Thomas to make some good suggestions for us to consider here in the near future.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else, Matt?
No, sir. That's good on treasury.
Before I give my report, it's nice to see the former mayor Nancy Gill with us. And those of you who are not aware, she does have a podcast twice a week now, which is quite interesting, except when she does it in the brewery and you have all the background noise. Anyhow, tune in, get hold of Nancy. She'll tell you how to listen to her podcast. And it's, so far I've listened to it and it's fairly interesting, keeps you up on things. Charlotte, did you want to speak to us tonight? Are you still, are you awake over there?
I think so.
Is she alive? Is she still breathing? All right, well, I'll make my report brief. I did go to the planning commission meeting. I went to the chamber meeting I told you about. We had the Donna meeting last Friday and talked about a number of things. And at that point is when Matt explained to me afterwards that we had this $56,000 surplus in the budget. And what we could start thinking about is just thing to do with that $56,000. And we're going to talk about sidewalks in a little bit. So that's one possibility. Some of it could be directed towards the sidewalk project if we need to. But I've read a number of articles recently about solar, and actually have been involved with, I've got a friend that lives out here on Langhorne, and had her meet Donna Friday because there's a rumor that she may have 1,000 solar panels in her backyard before she knows it. So anyhow, I've asked Matt to explore, do some exploring on putting solar panels on the roof here at Victory Hall.
Right.
You know, being the mayor, you get to sign the checks. And the checks for the electric around here are pretty substantial size checks.
Mm-hmm.
And if we could find a way to convert to solar this building, it would save the town a ton of money. Plus, you know, if you have excess electricity, you're not using it, you can sell it.
Mm-hmm.
And he's also going to explore solar powered street lamps.
Cool.
So that's what we're exploring right now. Just it would be possible maybe to do something with solar in this building.
Yeah, I think that's a great direction.
Yeah, me too.
I would also add though, in terms of you know, conserving energy too, like see what we can do about our doors downstairs. Those things are just
These windows are drafted.
yeah. I mean, like we did these windows and doors, the door downstairs and the front one in front of Victory Hall, just like stop air from leaving.
Yeah.
That would also help us a lot.
And so we could be, you know, one of the first, like we were the first bee city, we could be one of the first towns in solar power for municipal buildings.
Mr. Payne, how is your outdoor installation working for you?
Well, you know, I've got mixed emotions about solar power, but after 4 years, last year was the first month that I got a bill from Appalachian Power Company for $0. We have 36 panels. I can run everything from 3 refrigerators to an electric toothbrush and never miss a beat. Comes on in 15, seconds. I have a whole house generator to back it up. What happens with your solar power? And don't ask me the physics of it, but it gets created. It comes to your facility. You use it, and then, like Jim said, Mayor Smith said, what you don't use that particular day can be sold back if you don't have storage. Storage batteries right now are not a very good idea. They're not really, they haven't made improvements on them, and they're expensive. So you're better off selling them back to the company.
But you still need a generator, like when the power goes out, your panels don't run.
When Appalachian Power goes out, I was generating solar power when the Appalachian Power went out. So my power goes out. The reason is it's a two-way street. The company, Appalachian, provides electric, but we also send it back. And if they put a man on the pole over there, and I'm creating electricity, you know what can happen. So
if it goes out everywhere else, you have power.
When Appalachian goes down, my solar goes down, and then I've got a whole house generator that comes on, that ran for 3 days here back a few months ago. That cuts off the power comes on, the solar comes back on, and everybody's happy. It's something to explore. But like I said, the cost of that particular solar panel I have is $242 a month. So I'm going to pay $242 a month plus zero to the electric company. In February, I'm probably going to pay $642 a month because my electric use goes up, shorter days.
There's good news. Last year, the General Assembly adopted legislation so providing for the first time the Senate mandated incentives to electric companies, power companies. Those folks before were not motivated to help people so much. Now they have to help people. I think this will how we can actually this body would be an excellent piece of there's funding all you see is seminars for lawyers. That's security. So you know
I know that the tax credits don't help us.
no,
We're not
credits.
Right.
This is they're going to be incentivized to provide X percentage of their electric the grid is alternative energy. And to do that, they're going to have to spend some money, some previous citizens.
Some of council's guidance already has been to try to find matching leverage so that if we want to invest in something like solar panels, that we not be paying the full freight on it. So that we will get some help from the feds or from the power company.
That's exactly what that would help. They're actually looking for people to do this because they need rainbow people. Well,
This kind of also touches on what we were talking about in the planning commission too, just with general zoning, rural areas.
The difference between a rooftop mount or a yard mount, like what Mr. Payne has, compared to covering a whole hillside with solar panels, which can get pretty unpopular.
And there's snow to consider too. When it snows, the snow has to melt before the sunshine can come through.
I saw a solar panel that was the one solar panel.
Right.
Another one, so instead of it being just a roof, it was a solar panel. I had never seen that before. I don't know what it's connected to, how much it provides. Maybe just turn the light and shine on it, but it was a concept I hadn't seen today.
Yes, ma'am.
Check with that, they have,
That's right, they do.
Okay, thank you.
they like what we communities.
All right. Well, that's all I have to report, really.
Sure.
We've already talked.
Oh, you did while I was in the other room there? I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, everybody. I'll check the minutes.
Leave your seat.
Thank you.
So, that was really about all, since our marathon session that I was involved in the last couple of weeks. But I did meet with the chief a couple of times, and we discussed a couple of things. It was sort of funny. He was in civilian clothes. We were standing on the sidewalk. Now this pickup truck goes by. Slow down. He slowed down a little bit, but I was hoping he would turn around and come back. Chief got a good description of his vehicles. Anyhow, that's my report. We've talked budget focus and investments. So Matt, would you
Can
like
I
to
ask
tell
one more question, Jim, before we move on though?
Oh, sure.
For the ARB. And I brought it up at our last work session, but the new, forget what the House bill is now, basically the clutter ordinance that now authorizes towns to enforce debris that collects on properties within a town or city limits. And the ARB is interested in this because these issues have come up in the historic overlay district. Two properties in particular where things are collecting and people are like, what can we do about this, including residents, other property owners, and we can't because there's no health violation, right? And so this new, I forget the name of the number,
HB 1778, I think it was.
I hope that's-
Working on minutes today, sorry.
But anyway, so what the ARB wants to know, two things. One, from
Excellent.
your perspective, Jim, is that if we adopted an ordinance about clutter in alignment with this, would it have to apply to the town at large, or could it be applied just to the historic overlay district within the town?
Is there any reason why it should only be historic district? Because there's definitely a property that I noticed, Glen, that all of a sudden has a lot of properties. And it looks like a big ship.
Yeah, well, there's no reason why it does just need to apply to the historic overlay district. That's where we've like seen the issue. However, I kind of want to throw it out to you all to discuss your interest in adopting such an ordinance, whether it would be, if we could, just for the historic overlay district or for the town.
Certainly, you can do it for the town at large, just look at the legislation, or just the historical overlay district. Again, its enforcement mechanism is really tied to the assessment of taxes, because that provides you some mechanism to pay the cost of doing it about the club. We're not doing this in the past, it's for homeowners association. We're not talking about somebody who wants to put a sofa on its front porch.
Right.
For whatever reason. You're talking about somebody who's in the business of selling outdoor furniture. That happens to have 14 pieces of outdoor furniture, with 14 tables.
Or appliances
38
collected
chairs.
across the yard.
Yeah. That sort of thing. I mean, basically, if that's what you're talking about, come up with some definition of how to deal with that. Other than being small with neighbor disputes, tenants, neighbor disputes.
So we'd have to come up with a way to enforce it. Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah, enforce it, and then what are you gonna do if they say no? And then also you're gonna have to choose the narrow of what you mean by clutter.
Right.
It's like, I'm not sure I know what clutter is.
So they're defining clutter as mechanical equipment, household furniture, containers, and similar items that may be detrimental to the well-being of the community
Yeah.
if they are left in public view for an extended period or allowed to accumulate.
The example, of course, is you got a car, cinder blocks, that seems to be something you deal with, oil markets, you deal with that. With, one washing machine has been sitting there for 8 months. You know, suppose somebody puts up a white top, puts petunias in it.
That's a garden.
Yeah, don't go there. I'm being funny.
Yeah.
You know, but I'm serious. What's one person's clutter is another person's art. So you have to exercise some thought about how you can define it. So you're not endlessly involved in neighbors.
Right.
It's not designed to play gotcha with somebody's sense of exterior effort.
Right. Yeah, that wouldn't be the intention.
No, you see what I'm trying
But I
to
hear what
say?
you're saying. Yeah, it can be interpreted that way.
So this enforcement definition for ARB.
No, it's a town ordinance, I think.
I think the question at ARB level was, is it something that nestles inside of the historic overlay district, you know, zoning ordinance, or do we apply it townwide so that, you know, and the distinction there would be, does it become an ARB purview, or is it something that becomes a sort of town staff and town council purview?
Maybe easier to define the definition. It's kind of like the art of coming up. That's distinguishing what kind of fits appropriate.
Well, and that's what I'm coming to thinking about that, is then it's not just the definition of clutter, it's the threshold of, you know, yeah. And then after you've defined what it is and the threshold for it, you have to define that process for identifying it. And that would be the
I
sort of,
suppose we could have one old dryer that's been sitting on somebody's front yard for the next period of time. After a while, everybody snaps and says, we're going to get the horse and get rid of this dryer or put it in or enclose it or something. It's that kind of situation.
Are these two properties that you're talking about, Zach, rental or homeowners live there?
They are, I'm not sure. I think the homeowner live in one. I'm not sure exactly. There are more than two.
Yeah, you said two.
Yeah. Yeah, one's not occupied. Take it out. So I don't know, is that still just the council have interest in pursuing this, or that's what the ARB would like to know.
Without a lot of thought, the action is to apply it town-wide for there. I feel like the inclusive district for some of you, for others, it's not. So we're gonna take the aesthetics of the town into consideration.
The bill is new and took effect here this July. The delegate who carried it is from Hampton. So I wonder if maybe a locality down that way is using this. I'll ask around and see if I can find who's using this and maybe how they define the local ordinance.
Yeah.
I can bring you back a draft.
I'm also
That'd be good.
interested in finding particular areas because a yard or land is different than front yard or street view versus, you know, views, like rivers, city watershed, those kinds of terms and definitions. Because I think, you know, somebody on the river, that's different than somebody who has a corridor.
Yeah. And our ordinances speak to that, the entrance corridor, the historic district are different from other parts of town.
Right.
Okay.
But my yard is.
Is there railroad yard in the historical?
It is. And this is what I need to do too, is that like, it's four businesses, but some might be a clutter, but they're in service.
Well, it's not as if it's a seller, it's an issue of group. That's why they have more coverage on ARB than you would have.
Any more on clutter?
No, thank you.
Yeah, I've had a couple of people complain about maintenance and the town appearance. I know this is an ongoing problem, but I'm starting to hear it from the town populace about particularly Canal Basin Square. And one woman said that she would not really feel comfortable letting her family go play around in there because it looks kind of ratty and the weeds are coming up and we don't know what else is going on in there. So just a plug for seeing if we can't maybe do a little bit, see if there's something we can do about some maintenance in that area sooner rather than later.
Sure.
Itinerant business licenses.
Sure.
Thanks to former Mayor Gill, town administrator found out that we did have had issued a $500 annual license in this on this topic in the past.
Yes, thank you for reading the staff report in advance and finding the fact check. It makes the story more interesting.
It does.
So we. Yes. Good news. So the town's regular business license process is $30 flat fee to open a new business. And then the annual business license tax is a small percentage of the gross receipts, like an income tax. We have a different fee structure for itinerant businesses. When a peddler is moving through town, we charge them up front to come and do business in town. But if they're a traveling salesman going across the country, we might not be able to track them down again. So I think the logic of this ordinance is to have a little bit higher upfront business license fee because you might not be able to track them down, do the percent sales later on. And the traveling salesman business license fee goes way, way back in town history and is common. The rates for these businesses vary widely from place to place. And as we compared notes, thank you, Thomas, for the outreach, we sort of saw a breakdown between some localities where the itinerant business fees are very high, to the effect of being punitive. It looks like you don't really want traveling businesses coming in, maybe not competing with your brick and mortars. So you set that traveling business license fee pretty high and it effectively deters them. Other places make the business license fees pretty much the same. $30 to start a new business, whether you have a storefront or are working out the back of a truck, it doesn't matter. They treat them the same. And I put in the staff report that we had at the town level never sold a $500 business license fee for the whole year that would let a traveling business come in and set up whenever they wanted. That's not correct. We had one, and it was the flea market that operated for years around the shopping center and across from there. We've heard really good things from the public about they liked when the flea markets were running, especially around 4th of July. And one of the things we've heard was, well, what happened to the flea markets? Why can't we have that as part of our 4th of July? And it turns out that the flea market operator was the only one who was paying this $500 a year business license fee. That would put them one of the, comparable with one of our mid-tier businesses by gross receipts. We don't know how much they were actually selling because they don't even have to file gross receipts. They were just paying $500 flat. The only other kind of frequent user that we have on the itinerant business license every year is the fireworks vendor at 4th of July. He comes in, pays $50 once, does sales for a few days, and then leaves to go.
Can I interrupt for a second?
Please.
I would just add, the weekly and monthly options that we have on the itinerant business license were something that I did not see on other forms as I was looking through this. So what you're provided on page 2 of the agenda here that has the little table with everybody's rates, those are all annual rates. And
we do 50 for a week and 100 for a month.
Exactly.
Or 500 for a year.
Right.
We've gotten some extra criticism on this lately as regards food trucks. These are growing and becoming more popular. The classic ice cream truck or the hot dog stand that wants to set up, they say, hey, I want to come to town. And I say, well, that'll be $500 for the year. And they say, no. Or compromise $50 for a week and see how you like it. And they've been doing the $50, but they're not doing the $500. Yeah.
they'll do $50 and then try to do a Saturday and maybe a Sunday too, and see if they can make their money on the license.
Here and there, not every week, but here and there.
So how does this, having some dabbling with the farmers market and also with events and working with food trucks, right? Some would like to be more locally based. Where does that fit for an event food fee that's charged by the community?
When it's a town-sponsored event or setting up on town property, our event fee supersedes the business license. We're giving special permission to operate at this location on this day for our event. So we're not using the business license that would let you go anywhere else in town. Yes.
But I would say I would expect if we had a food truck licensed in the town that we were inviting to our event, it would still be appropriate to ask them for a vendor fee at the event as well. Yeah, exactly.
So what I'm kind of the check-in of, this is an ordinance that's been in place in town for a long time, and it's had those mixed results. We've learned a little bit about who uses it, who doesn't use it. I'm not sure what the original intent was. If the point is to deter traveling salesmen and protect our brick and mortars, I'd say it's been pretty effective in that. If you're interested in supporting startups and letting somebody incubate their business in a truck, we're probably forcing those people somewhere else because our fees are
or if you just think that we have not yet reached saturation in our food market, and that there's an opportunity for public enjoyment and entrepreneurial success in more options available, this would be a way to address that.
Well, and I'm just even thinking by not having people in a food truck, you might be turning away people who might want to work more down. Right.
Exactly. They don't have to.
Yeah, they don't have the ability to give it a go and see what this market is like.
Right. These ordinances were set up to restrict peddlers and protect brick and mortar existing businesses who value their own pay that invest in the community. This guy comes in at key times and takes the low hanging fruit. Yeah, but the world has changed, and now you find a lot of existing businesses.
Amazon's the biggest peddler out there, and we can't.
Yeah. I guess my other question is somewhat related, and that is, let's say that council goes in the direction of wanting to be flexible, lowering that amount. Do we then want to designate a place where these food trucks or opportunities might take place so that you're not necessarily fighting
I think that those would probably be two separate interacting, but not, I don't think we do it in the same, like, I don't think we could issue the license and say, maybe we could, Jimmy could tell us, does the license apply, can we give a license that says you're clear in the town of Scottsville, but not on Valley Street? Or do we need to pass a separate ordinance that says no food trucks on Valley Street, here's your business license?
Is I don't want a pizza truck across the street from my pizza restaurant a good enough reason?
Yeah, what would be a justifiable
That's
reason?
the reason that you don't want a pizza
Right.
truck across the pizza.
Well, yes,
Or a hot dog stand across the hot dog stand.
right. But the way I understand the permission for the itinerant business license, it lets you set up anywhere in town. So I'd be
That's
reluctant
true.
to say, well, not on the side.
500 is an enormous amount of money. Right. And do it. I bet if you go back and search, you're gonna find that the $500 figure hasn't changed
That's true.
in 50 years.
Oh,
We're getting
and
better on inflation.
you could see, looking at Albemarle County had addressed the reality of the food truck situation and created a separate itinerant license for food trucks at $50, but kept their $500 itinerant license for every other itinerant peddler.
I mean, the food trucks parking apartment spaces in front of the restaurant.
Right.
That's what it suggests. It's a public parking space. So I
Yeah,
think
that's the problem.
Yeah.
Which is a completely different problem than all, which don't have to worry about parking.
Well, a few weeks ago, the volunteer fire department had a food truck on the fire property. How was that handled? Were they like a $30 fee?
He paid $50.
$50 for the
$50.
weekly license. He's done that several times with us.
Okay.
And
Of
so
course,
that gives him a,
Even though a lot of the proceeds went to the fire department percentage, I think you still had to pay the fee.
yes, sir.
And then how many people do you get that don't pay anything? Just come to the parking?
That's hard to keep track
I've
of.
never chased anyone away.
Yeah.
I haven't noticed a blatant violation.
There's been a couple times we couldn't chase them.
You think? Okay.
At least, so like we've had events where they set up in the wrong location because it was an opportunity for them. It wasn't designated for a health permit, so they really should.
But when we get vendors for events, they get a designated space to set up, right? So that's a little different,
Now, this is-
right? I think it's a little different. So if we're doing just the food trucks, food truck wants to come to town, they can park wherever they like.
Under normal rules with this peddler's license, you get your peddler's license, you can park in any legal spot.
which you gave us, so,
Yes, they could poach on an event of ours.
Although I don't know if it's poaching, I mean, like, if we have an event like Baton, and we've got vendors down there, but other people see an opportunity to like
If
Do we
we-
care?
If we
sell
don't have
something
a food truck.
additionally, and that brings more people.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know, that seems like,
I've heard feedback both ways about it, and it's got me thinking about what the intent of this ordinance is. It's before my time. What are we trying to do?
And I think that's one of the frustrating things from the staff point of view is we get people who come in who either, purchase the license or would like to and are deterred by the price. And in both cases, there's often a conversation about
Why is it like?
why is your fee structure like this? This is very different from everywhere else I go. Right.
Right, and so some of it, you just be saying, hey, $50 here on a Wednesday night. Or you can go-
But if you want to stay past 1 o'clock in the afternoon, you need to,
Yeah.
But yes, just some amount of clarity on the intention at the very least, even if things stay the same, so that from the staff level, we can describe it as a protection of the brick and mortars, if that's what the intent of it is to be.
I don't mind saying that.
Right.
But I also know that there are business plans to do a food truck.
Yeah. So we wanted to put the information in front of you and introduce the idea. And if we can loop back around to it, maybe in a future work session, when you've had a chance to digest and think about, is this something, a fee structure that we want to revisit and revise, or is this operating the way that we intend? And if so, what are those intentions?
Sidewalks. Okay. We've had a couple of task force sessions on this one, and guidance from town council to keep working on it, but not today. So here's the kind of latest update on it. Where the site planning goes back to our comprehensive plan, wanting to improve bike and pedestrian safety in town and try to improve our sidewalk system. Planning Commission focused on this west downtown area as needing some sidewalk improvements. And that kind of led into the west downtown small area plan as well. Pieces kind of going together. In October 2019, council approved the application for this VDOT sidewalk construction program. And we outlined a sketch plan, more or less completing the loop of the levee walk, that it would be nice to be able to make a circle using part of the levee walk, the farmer's market, Harrison and Bird Street to the library, but that would make sense of the course. So we applied for the VDOT funding program with that project in mind. It was a pretty competitive program, but VDOT found our application persuasive and let us know of an award of a $320,000 grant, which required an $80,000 local match. We put that project on hold there in 2020 with pandemic operations. We didn't know where our budget stood. During that same time, construction costs went up. So council was rightly concerned that $400,000 in 2019 doesn't buy as much as $400,000 now. And we started to look for ways to control the costs of these. VDOT staff offered, well, let us manage it for you. And then there won't be a staff burden on us. We won't be preyed upon by consultants. VDOT can manage it just the same as one of their own projects. We looked at that, but then VDOT came in with their version of the budget, and now our $400,000 didn't get us very much at all. Doing it VDOT's way made it more expensive. And they acknowledged that when their staff presented to town council and council was concerned about the cost, VDOT followed up and said, yeah, our in-house administration fee, they get paid really well as consulting engineers. So they went back and said, no, if you're really concerned about cost cutting on this and value engineering it, you can get a private sector engineer for cheaper than a VDOT guy. Their cost structure is not set up to encourage that. They don't want every locality just using that. There aren't enough VDOT project managers to do the whole state. So it's a pretty punishing cost framework. So they told us, if you want to control your cost, get an engineer that you trust, but their hourly rate is going to be less than ours at the state level. So that's where they're back on. We still have this contract offered to us. The grant award hasn't changed, but they're going to advertise the next round of these grants soon. And they really do want a decision from us within this month or next month of what are we doing on this? Do we want to get under contract, or do we want to surrender this money? Their recommendation, if we proceed, is run it yourselves, put it out for bid to get a private engineer. But if cost control is a strong concern of yours, put that top line and say cost control is one of our top priorities. We don't want to be responsible for overruns, because as you said, VDOT awards the $320,000, but if the total project is $450 instead of $400, the town is responsible for the overrun. We can try to look for other funding partners on this, but Piedmont Housing Alliance is not in a great spot to pay for nearby infrastructure. The library doesn't do its own capital funding. They don't have $50,000 that they can just give us. Albemarle County would be worth a try. I went to them for project management help. And what they said was, well, giving a little bit of money might actually be easier than staff, because they don't want to administer this thing either. Their staff time is limited and they're shorthanded right now. So it's possible that getting $10,000 or $20,000 from them could happen in the future. But it's not something that discretionarily they can just do. I'm careful about my recommendation, but thinking about what we heard from the public last month at rezoning, you heard the concern of traffic and traffic safety if there's more construction in that neighborhood. And I'm worried about the missed opportunity that we might see if we said no to the sidewalk money and then had development proposals and then wished we had money to fix sidewalks. So I think my advice is to take the contract, but move slowly and try to line it up with other construction plans. And then as we work with our engineer, make cost control a top priority and really try to keep this under budget.
And this
It's a tough one.
$80,000 match requirement, not budget.
What we have budgeted now is the match for the engineering component of it. It's 4 years worth of project from signing on the dotted line to finishing everything up. It can be extended if we need longer, but VDOT expects it to take 4 years.
And our 80,000 match will be spread over the phases of that 4 years. So we'll have about $10,000 or so in engineering costs to get the initial phase rolling, and then our largest cost share will come during the construction phase.
How much square foot is
That has varied a lot. The original plan that Timmins gave us an estimate for, which was what we applied to VDOT with, was enough to get us, as Matt described, from the farmer's market all the way up to Bird Street and all the way out Bird Street to meet with the levee entrance. And they said originally that they would be able to do that for this $400,000 budget.
This is the old cost estimate, which had us starting design work last October. We put all that on hold while we saw what pandemic was. But it's 10% design, 5% right of way, and 75% construction. The biggest single line item in here is the concrete work. 20% of the total project is concrete. You're doing landscaping to fix it up again, maintaining traffic while you do the work, no wetland impact because of location. $20,000 of demolition, but so the core construction cost is $100,000.
Right, if you were jumping all around and left this west side of the river to Blanco, it would have cost points.
That's right.
Yeah, and that's the problem. Still there.
The topography hasn't changed.
That's what I mean. You still got all those choke points. So.
That's right.
And so you're gonna have to jump around the side points. So put it someplace that will be a short segment side.
I think spot fixes is probably the right way to break this up. What are the
I couldn't think of the word.
what's the path of least resistance that lets you
At least it gets started.
improve the whole neighborhood and have something that's rational if you're in a wheelchair, but try to avoid the most expensive locations.
Okay.
But can we do that?
But that basically goes just from the library to downtown,
Yes.
which is the biggest, one of the biggest areas of concern.
Sure, if you prioritize the straight shot on Bird Street. That's the avenue that the most public concern is talking about, right? This intersection right out here. And if I have a new house down there, I want to get downtown, what's the easiest way for me to do that?
And then the L shape would then be from that intersection to the community center.
Sure.
So, yeah, the residents that live there, the community that goes in regular basis, kids that walk from the library to park, where the community that parks there walks downtown for events. It's a cleanup.
VDOT's offering work within a large project area, this whole west side of downtown. And they seem very amenable to revising that scope.
They even suggested that route as one of the possible options.
For solving the problems that we see. Doing a little bit more dialogue about where do you actually cross the street? If we could add 4 good crosswalks, which ones would you do? The answers might surprise us.
It's just frightfully expensive, but there's no getting around it. Gotta get started.
And so what does that look like from demolition to actual construction of the site?
How much of the budget goes to core construction?
The time.
It's a 4-year window with options to extend. This example of the schedule gives you 4 months of preliminary engineering I would probably stretch that longer because we want to do a little bit more conversation, make sure we walk it ourselves, talk to some neighbors, take more time on design to make sure we're solving the right things. Only a couple of months of right of way because they assume that all of the right of way is VDOT controlled already, and that there wouldn't be any long negotiation for right of way purchase. That could certainly change if you decide you need to work in a spot where right of way has to be acquired. It takes time to survey and purchase. Construction is a year once we know here's what we're procuring for. The actual work gets done in the space of a summer. So the points in this process that can really slow it down and cause delays are if you're doing a long design process and talking to lots of people, or if you're purchasing right of way and have to go back and forth on negotiation. Realtor, you can spend some time negotiating a right of way purchase.
I think the other thing that's probably worth including in the conversation is, as VDOT mentioned in their first visit with us, if the original award amount is no longer adequate to get us the full scope that we applied for, they encouraged us to come back to the table for future grant awards, and said that they'd be very open to helping us with that. And as Matt said, that next round of those awards, the application process is going live soon here. So if we were to move forward and get an understanding of what our current scope under this award was going to be, it would give us some time to decide if we do need to do a phase 2 to this project. We would be able to get in line with that next round of.
Oh, not this year.
No, you don't think? No. Okay.
We'd get under contract, we'd start the design process, but then we'd have to be applying for more money this fall.
And that would be closed by then?
We wouldn't have done anything.
It would be closed. Okay.
Yeah, so it was more like wait 2 years. That would get us, we would know what our phase 1 was. We'd be going to construction on our phase 1. And then we'd say, it's been 2 years. This is all as far as we've got. Let's apply for more. But no, you can't apply for more money before you really even start the first part.
You don't think we'd be far enough along in phase 1 there to know where our construction was going to be ending?
Because we wouldn't have gotten, it wouldn't be a cost estimate.
Okay. Okay. I stand corrected.
I like it though. Think about ways to
Still trying to keep this ahead. Yeah, stay ahead of the ball.
It's slow enough that we could get through 2 years of this and we would know where the first part stood. And then if we wanted to continue on more, so we could do that.
Okay.
Do we need to make a decision next Monday or do we have another one?
I think we could plead one more month to think about it.
All right.
I guess we're a small town, but we've got a small staff. We got kind of like a small crew, and we don't have I'm concerned that we're like bumping up against our bandwidth for managing projects and things.
How do you feel that?
Stuart's comments about maintenance, I think are worth hearing.
Mm-hmm.
It's important to note the comments from the public at our last public session about us taking ownership of a plot of land that we own involved the maintenance of the town. They didn't trust us as public stewards of a quarter-acre lot. It's not terribly impressive. And so I'm concerned that if we stretch ourselves too far with project management, we're going to miss taking care of the things that we already have.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm looking at $80,000 would build new boats in Canal Basin Square, and I know we've got we're flush with cash right now, but that's going to disappear, and we've got all the project ideas. So,
But I think the thing that you have to think about with the sidewalks, that we just finished a small area plan. This is the type of thing that firmly implements the things that are needed in that small area.
And I get that. I mean, I was a proponent of this sidewalk plan. I was very, very initially gung ho about it. I'm just concerned that I feel like we're missing things. That like we're getting things moving without attending to all parts of the town.
But I do like
That's all.
Matt's statement of construction costs being cheaper and past and for now.
Mhm.
I think that is something to keep in mind.
Mhm.
Well, I have a summer intern through the museum and she was in town Thursday, and we were walking around, and I was showing her different sites and historical places, and it's a bit embarrassing when you're walking down Harrison Street, and you have to say, "No, watch your step," because it's concrete's like this, and you know, somebody that's not familiar with walking down.
That's what makes it historic.
Like Barry Grove said, in front of his house, they have like, the road is like this, used to be down here, and now it's like up here.
Oh, yeah, no. The sidewalks are missed, there's no doubt about that.
Yeah, but so there's all kinds of ways to look at this thing. So let's look at it really seriously and see if we can come up with something, maybe not next week, but at least a month from next week.
I have one question, and that is a lot of this next step is we don't have an engineer office in Scottsville, and the county's already said no. Like, what's the likelihood of getting good available engineers to take on the project for this small scope? Like, what is that landscape look like?
The two firms in Virginia that do the most of these infrastructure projects and know the CDOT program inside and out, they both have field offices in Charlottesville. Timmons Group did our preliminary work on it, so they're familiar with the project already. Kim Warren, experienced construction. So I think we get bids, and you're not paying for a ton of travel costs from across the state to get staff here. I think that would be responsive.
And put a pitch in to say, hey, it's an interesting place. Actually, that's the resident. Big engineering firm. Sure. Both of them have pretty small shops.
And Timmons was the group that did our original engineering on the application proposal we took. So part of this would be an opportunity to go back to them and say, VDOT thinks your project was twice as big as the budget allows. Do you want to? Right.
Especially the guy that is not there.
All right, anything else on sidewalks? ARP.
Oh goodness. My staff report has a couple of project updates on this tonight. Mr. Bullock, I really appreciate the comment on our bandwidth, because I think this pretty well represents us juggling about as many balls as we can. Because this is not, we're not working all of your rescue plan projects right now. We're working 3 of your rescue plan projects now. And you see the results in this group. So DMV Select, the recruitment is nearly complete. Our supervisor, Latoya Hamlet, has started work, and we have 1 accepted offer for the part-time clerks. I didn't get the 2 hires out of that pool that I hoped to, so we relaunched it real quick, and we're doing more interviews at the end of this week. We're seeing the edge of the job pool on things like entry-level customer service. You might have heard of this phenomena of not serious job applications, where you have to do applications to maintain your unemployment payments. And so we're seeing what looks like a decent application, and then they're not actually interested, and they drop out. It was a ban application. And that's maybe 1/3 of the applications that I'm getting. Wow. Recruiting a little bit harder. The construction work on the office has started. Tashi Mid-Atlantic has a low bid on that, and they have a good team of local subs. The electrician is working today. So that's on schedule. We did, we're furnishing that room. We've got a line item for it. I've picked out a couple of things from the UVA warehouse and have ordered a little bit of new furniture from our Uline catalog, which is a good price. So that's within budget. We'll be assembling that here one of these afternoons.
Can't we just go grab something from the factory?
Oh, yeah, like there is some furniture there.
IKEA, maybe.
There is some furniture. That's true. So DMV is on schedule. We'll be out at training at that at the beginning of August in Richmond for training on the DMV system, and then launching it on August 16th. I IT setup is another piece that we've got on that here soon. Yes. That will also help with everyone's email and document access as we upgrade some Microsoft accounts. For you.
Yeah.
So look for the instructions on that. soon.
I was going to say, hopefully by our next work session, we have on agenda in August, discussing your new email accounts and shared drives. Yeah.
It's getting there. The big grant application that's underway now, Mr. Munchin mentioned already, is the community business launch. This lets us match some of our ARPA funding fivefold with state economic development money. Kind of like the Shark Tank game show, sponsoring a contest for new startup businesses into vacant storefronts in town. Put out a call, here's the available real estate, here's the businesses that we think will do well in town. Show us what you've got, take some classes, compete for a prize. The classes are open to any business in town. If someone wants to come back and school up. Unfortunately, we can't offer the new grant money to an existing business. So it's pushing harder to fill the remaining vacant storefronts. We talked about this at the Chamber of Commerce board meeting, and there actually wasn't any concern, like I was afraid there might be, of, well, why is this grant money only going to new businesses? It's clear that it's a new opportunity, and letting existing businesses take advantage of free classes around business planning, marketing, banking, that went over well. So the local Chamber of Commerce was very supportive of this idea.
And just to clarify, if an existing business owner has an idea for a new business, that is eligible.
I don't think it's, we'll need to put a team together for it. Pending award of the funding, advertise it and get a scoring team together of, what do we think is, who's best prepared to do a good job here?
Can I just ask a question?
Please.
What vacant storefronts are you talking
Yes.
Do you want to run through them?
Just briefly, because you're helping me with the inventory and you've got the list of 10 or so.
Yeah, I basically compiled an inventory. There's 9 in downtown Scottsville, and then there's 3 vacant ones in uptown, so 2 in Scottsville Center. They both say for lease on the window, and then 1 at what's the street?
The Danzy building.
Yeah, there's vacant rental opportunities in there. And then some are buildings that are for sale that aren't currently open to someone renting the space. And then some, I think 3 or 4 have spaces for rent
about?
currently.
You said there's 9 in downtown?
Yeah, but some of them are the old post office building that
Okay.
would have to be purchased before someone moved in.
Yeah.
So what's the total?
A number of buildings.
9 plus 3.
Yeah, 12.
That's what
Yeah,
Good
me
work,
too.
everybody.
Yeah.
So it sounds like it's almost 50/50 on sell versus rent and the open to.
Yeah, and some people on the each form that we're presenting to them, it has their contact info for the owner, and some were more responsive and said, yes, these places would be for rent and this would be the estimated rental, and some don't really get back to you.
And to put some kind of urgency on it, what's the percentage of businesses? 12.
We have 77 licensed businesses now.
Gosh, why do I not have that as easily as HB177? I think that's about right. Yeah.
So it's 87. Last I heard, 96. It's a little more than 10%.
Yes. Which commercial vacancy, that's not great,
Not bad,
but not so bad. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, current state of affairs, that's probably
But some of them are
shouldn't be too disappointed with that.
That's right. It's-
very,
Yeah.
very, very, very observant.
Yeah,
Very
I think-
observant.
Yeah, I think our vacant spots are just prominent.
And sort of chronic. Some of them
Yeah.
have been,
Mhm.
persistently vacant. Yeah.
So that application is due Friday and should hear around September on it. So class time would be in the winter if successful, and then the big pitch competition maybe next spring.
How has this been advertised?
It hasn't yet because we haven't applied for it yet. If successful, the marketing would be all of our channels with as much diversity of outreach as we can in the fall, probably October, for recruitment into December, January, February classes. Yep. Waterfront organizing is another one of the rescue plan projects that we've been working on. Council put some priority on the James River waterfront as one of the areas in town that isn't under our full control, but doesn't look as good as it should, drives our tourism, and we could do more to put a partnership together to help that look better. So the controllers of the site are the Department of Wildlife Resources. They operate the boat ramp there, and they were keen to acknowledge how overstressed they are. It's a very small number of staff maintaining dozens of sites around the state. So any help that we can offer to help them maintain it better and help it fulfill its legal purpose, they're happy to share and welcome us aboard. So we've got a little bit of planning and organizing in there. We're lucky to have the Green Infrastructure Center, top-notch business for this kind of environmental planning right here in town. So they'll convene a few riverfront stakeholder meetings and do up some sketches for us. So look for those meeting invitations here coming up in the next few weeks, and we'll save half of this money for improvements to the site. I'm not sure what those will be. I don't want to prejudge it, but things like tree planting, seeding, signage, cleaner parking spaces, a little bit of work to affect the drainage so it doesn't get so muddy, that would all make sense. It's not very appealing as a place to do anything other than launch a boat right now. You come in with the trailer, you come in, get on the river, and we hear the concern about this doesn't really work like a park because it's a dusty gravel lot most of the time. So if you've got ideas on how to spruce that up, by all means, come on down to those meetings.
So Matt, I didn't think that, I thought at one point that they were not encouraging people to congregate down there. And they wanted people to come in, launch their boats and leave. Has that changed? Or did I misunderstand that initially?
So when we met with the Wildlife Resources, we talked about that perception and understanding. And I said, technically, yes, that's correct. However, Department of Wildlife Resources is very open and keen to having MOUs where they can change that expectations and make it public. So it's basically a written agreement between them and the town and other entities to improve the waterfront, the access. And in that conversation, they even went so far as to say, hey, we could build a ramp for kayaks on the opposite end so that you're getting double the attraction and spreading on the parking. So like they would be willing to pump that from the get-go. So we can change that. Right?
So the conversation of what do we want that site to be as a community? What do we need it to do for us? And then we can negotiate the memo that lets it.
And what's beautiful about that MOU is it can include the initial project, but the MOU also includes long-term maintenance modifications. So it's clear for all parties involved who's doing the initial, who's maintaining it, whatever comes where things we need to address, like water rising, right? Who responds to that water rising?
Great.
That's right.
It's very encouraging. So much so that they're willing to help us with the trail all the way through Bush Bend. So it's like a big picture conversation.
Where would that trail go?
Good question. I think we should ask our community.
Yeah.
Right? For releasing that building. But they've worked with a couple of several communities in Virginia that I'll share the community with that demonstrate how they work with private citizens, companies, multiple, like Jake River Association, Department Conservation, and DEQ, for some reason comes to mind, where they all are part of that community.
All right.
So I'm excited about it.
Yeah, it's good progress.
Just started. We just need together.
Yep, that's right.
Friday the 30th is the next planning meeting. We've got some availability before lunch on that day.
For the waterfront.
Yes. Friday the 30th at 10:30. That'll be the first of several.
Will there be some hours that aren't available?
Yes. that's what I've got. As you said, working several things at a time with recruiting, budgeting, year-end coming up. We're at our edge now. So it's nice to see like opening the DMV will be a really good step towards creating some time.
All right, does anybody have anything else we need to talk about before we leave? If not, think about all we've done tonight and all we have to do, and see you on Monday. Thank you.
That's good.
Mr. Munson, it's good to see you on the online there. It helps keep us.
Yeah, I totally forgot that we could meet in person, so I'll be down there next Monday.
Good night.